We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land of which we record this podcast, the Whadjuk people of Nungabuja. We recognise their continued connection to the land and waters of this beautiful place and acknowledge that this land has never been ceded.
Welcome to Health and Safety Conversations. Here's your host, Tom Bourne.
And joining us today is the absolutely marvellous Sandra Lam. Sandra, how are you?
Sandra Lam is an endorsed organizational psychologist and the Managing Director of FIFO Focus and Permentis. With over 2 decades of experience across public and private sectors in Australia and internationally, Sandra is recognized for her expertise in psychosocial risk, organizational well-being, and shaping positive workplace cultures. Through FIFO Focus, she works closely with the mining and remote workforce sectors, providing psychosocial risk management training and services, trauma-informed practices, including in psychosocial investigations, mental health training, resilience building programs, and FIFO life preparation. As Managing Director of Permentis, Sandra leads projects across justice, utilities, defense, government, and international development, designing and implementing systemic, human-centered solutions to improve performance, engagement, and psychosocial safety. Sandra's career has taken her to Asia, the Pacific, Africa, and South America, often working in high-risk or high-impact environments. She holds a master's in Organisational Psychology and an MBA and is a fellow of the College of Organisational Psychologists.
I'm well, Tom. Thank you so much. Good to be here.
It is good to be here. Here in the lovely little studio that we've got done here. I'm super impressed. You are the second person we've had in the studio. Surprisingly, people from Perth.
Mm-hmm.
No one's flown over to Bean. I'm quite sad about that.
Well, what is wrong with them?
Absolutely. They'll probably listen to this and hear this and probably just jump on the plane and come across.
That's exactly right.
So, Sandra, I've known you for how long now?
I want to say 4 years, 3.
I reckon it's around 3.
Yeah.
3 and a bit. So I was introduced to Sandra as the person in charge of FIFO Focus, and you were coming in to do some work with a little organisation that I worked with at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a bit like Voldemort. It's the he who shall not be mentioned.
Well, I do like Harry Potter, so, we can use those analogies. So.
I don't know. Harry Potter seems for younger people. I mean, that must mean you're like the next generation below me, right?
Well, yes, that's it. Exactly that.
Absolutely. Anyhow, and then I moved across to another organisation, and lo and behold, Sandra appeared within a few weeks. It was just like,
I'm following you.
She's
Tom.
following me.
She's
following me. She's professionally stalking me for sure. We shouldn't joke about that. And then, I don't know, we've had several frank discussions.
Mm-hmm.
And I the one thing I like about our friendship is, I consider you a friend, is
Yes.
we can tell each other the truth, and whether it's brutal or not,
Mm-hmm.
we're old enough and mature enough to take it on board. So that's been good. Now, you're still running FIFO Focus.
Yes, I am.
And how is that going for you?
It's going really well. We're in 9 years in. I've lost track. 2016 until now, that's 9 years.
Yep.
9 years in, or nearly 9 years in. Still loving it, still enjoying what we're doing, still trying to solve problems for the industry. I think that's what keeps me going. There's always problems to solve, and if we can help, yay.
Okay. Over that 9 years, have you gained much traction with industry in itself?
Yes, I feel like we have. Of course, the legislation change really helps as well, but I think it's just... I think we've gained traction because we're seen as trusted partners in the space and not just a provider of services. And I think that's what makes a real big difference.
Yeah, I think the trust bit goes a long way, because it's like everything. When legislation changes, every man and his dog sees an opportunity to make money. And you would be aware that literally the amount of people who are trying to provide at least some sort of service to capitalise on psychosocial risks has just exploded. Yeah, and not all of them are actually qualified for what they're doing.
Yep.
So what makes FIFO Focus, besides the trust factor, what makes them a standout in terms of with industry in itself?
I'd say is the fact that we majority of us are Masters of Org Psych trained and also endorsed Org Psychs. I think that really makes a difference, because when we're talking about, say, controls for psychosocial risk, it has a lot to do with the design of work, which is essentially the bread and butter of what an org psych gets trained to do. And I think that really helps. I think what also helps is our experience in the industry itself. So it's not like we worked elsewhere and then just jumped into the industry and trying to learn a whole heap about mining. I don't think you can do that so well. We've lived and breathed it. So we know what it is like to be on site and what involves. I think our backgrounds as well, there's the safety background, there's the OD background, as well as the HR background, which I think is a beautiful combination for the psychosocial risk area.
Good. Now, recently you've got a program through the Mars program.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we've got a few.
Tell us about them all.
So the main one that we started off with was the 4-day psychosocial risk management capability enhancement program. Very long name, because it's a 4-day course that's spread over a few weeks. And the reason for that was just to really develop some internal capabilities and internal SMEs, so to speak, for psychosocial risk within industry. And so that was essentially the first. At that time, it wasn't Mars, it was before Mars. And then we had the Trauma-Informed Investigations grant. And more recently, we've got the Small Mining Psychosocial grant to really upskill the smaller entities, even down to the exploration organisations, where, you could be talking about 3 or 4 people. You can't adopt the same sort of risk methodology to something that's small. So how do we tailor it to still look at the risk of psychosocial hazards, but in a really more practicable way?
Yeah. And I believe that's been fully funded by...
Fully funded free.
I want to call them WorkSafe WA now, because
Algiers.
Lagers or whatever.
Apparently it's Algiers.
Algiers.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds like a country, perhaps, or a capital of a country.
It does too.
But, anyhow, I'm sure they've enjoyed changing their stationery, their uniforms and everything else.
Well, change is a good thing, right? Okay,
it's inevitable. Inevitable,
exactly.
Like taxes and death, maybe. Okay. Now, what I could see would be nice. It's probably not going to happen, because not all nice things happen. Do you think that eventually a program you talked about for small organisations, 2, 3, maybe a dozen people, do you think a similar program could be rolled out for small businesses across Western Australia?
100%. I think there should be an appreciation, and this is a big gap actually in a lot of things that government funds, is for the bigger entities with the more resources, and it's more complex, of course. But there's also a lot of complexities with the small organisations that also need to meet the work health and safety legislation. And I don't think we're giving enough support into those areas either.
Yeah, that's one of my greatest concerns with safety legislation and enforcement of it. It's the smaller organisations which just do not have the resources,
exactly,
or the knowledge, or the expertise. And if any way we can support people to create safer workplaces, it's probably a good thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's one of the most misunderstood and complex psychosocial hazards you've seen in workplaces?
Ooh, most commonly missed and misunderstood?
Yeah.
Role clarity. I think the reason is when people don't consult their workforce about the lack of role clarity, there's such a big assumption that role clarity means I have a position description. Role clarity, when we do risk assessments, is not about the not about the job descriptions or lack thereof. It's about not understanding the expectations in terms of priorities. And if we're thinking about the world of work these days, we're all so busy all the time. It's because essentially we're doing a whole bunch of things that are considered priorities. And we find people struggle with working out which one to do first, or whether we actually need to do all of them. Even myself, I'm sure I throw stuff into my team saying, we've got to do this, but we're not actually removing anything that may not be as useful anymore, or not providing clarity about removing some things. And I think that's one of the biggest ones and most commonly experienced within the workplace.
If you're reporting to more than one person, does that make it inherently more complex?
Yes, that's where you get role conflict as well, which is a subset of role clarity. So what we're talking about there is, if, especially in mining, where you may have supervisors that cross over, a different shift supervisor at times, where the way to do things or what is expected might be conflicting with what the previous supervisor said. So that can be a bit of a problem. We also are working in non-mining matrix organisations where there's a functional reporting line, and then there's an administrative reporting line, and what's expected there might not necessarily be the same, or they might be conflicting in terms of priorities there as well.
All right. If you're a worker and you've got a supervisor or manager who gives you new and competing priorities several times a day, how do you go about addressing that?
I think it's just listing them all. Say, look, I've got all of these things. In your view, which one do you consider most important that I need to focus on? And we don't do that.
No.
We go, keep going, keep going.
Yes, I'm thinking I've never been good at actually pushing back and saying, what do you want me to focus on?
Yeah.
This is my time. What do you want me to actually look at?
Yeah. Otherwise you do everything poorly.
Yeah.
Which is not beneficial for the organisation anyway, right? So
I might have done that a few times as well.
You're only human, Tom.
Well, apparently. All right. Are we improving things in psychological safety and in managing psychosocial risks in the FIFO industry?
I'm thinking hard about this because I think it depends on the criteria you use to measure success. Are we getting better at understanding what they are? Yes. Are we doing more with hazard identification or risk assessments? Yes. Are we spending too much time on whether it fits into a risk matrix and making the documentation look great to the detriment of actually doing the work to make things better? Yes.
Okay.
So that's the way I see things. It's, if we think about, and maybe that's the way risk has always been progressing through organisations, where it becomes so much about documentation that we forget to do the doing. And yes, sure, the documentation tells you when to do it by who and, all that sort of stuff. But I think we spend way more time getting the things done on paper than actually fixing the work. So I think it's an important time to reflect on how much we put into things versus trying to actually fix things.
Yeah, good.
Would you agree?
I think so.
Yeah, great.
I think so. Too many times trying to make things perfect instead of actually getting out on the ground and actually doing something, I think it's an easy trap.
Yeah.
All right. Going to ask you something, and it's a big question, and probably no one's going to want me to ask the question, but I'm going to ask it anyhow. Is FIFO work in itself a psychosocial hazard?
Is the work itself?
The nature of the work, as in working away from home and away from family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I'd say it's because it's against human nature to be away from your family for that long period of time without a really stronger community purpose. So the reason I say that is people will say, well, yeah, but the military goes away for long periods of time and police goes away. But their purpose is to protect and to serve and all those sorts of things. Whereas FIFO doesn't have that hat to hang on. So they're separated by work, but it's very individually sort of focused. And that's not normal for a lot of people to do that. So they're going to struggle with the isolation. They're going to struggle with, you're living in close quarters in many ways with people you may not necessarily like or get along with and would never catch up with outside of the whole work environment. But you just have to live with it. And also on top of that, you add in the ridiculous hours in terms of the time you get up.
Yep.
Yes, I know that tradies also get up at stupid o'clock and they come to my house and at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, has to be 7 o'clock, to fix things, but they finish at 3. Whereas when you're working up there, you get up at stupid o'clock and then you keep working until 5:30 and then you might have to do all this other bits and bobs, so it's exhausting.
Yep. There's quite a few things in what you just said, which is good for me to ping off. All right, first of all, I'm glad you said military. Because let's be brutally honest. Yes, military do have a purpose, yes, so they do spend a long time away. But they also have a very high suicide rate.
Yes, they do.
So does the FIFO industry still.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just coincidence?
I suppose it's, if you're thinking it might be to do with being isolated or separated by work, possibly. But I also think about the culture of both types of industries. So it is a very, if you don't fit in, you
go away.
Yeah, pretty much.
I know it.
You know that one? I think both of them are like that. I think in the military, there's also a component of the effects of war and warfare.
Yes.
So that is also not normal for people to experience for a long period of time. So I think that's where it's a little bit different. But essentially, I think when you're looking at a very hierarchical, it's not even, FIFO is not hierarchical, but you're isolated, it's very masculinely rough, tough. You have to be that certain way. And you don't have the reprieve of coming home on a regular basis if you're away. I think that those things make a big impact.
Good. Something else you mentioned was fatigue. Now, I don't know. I don't do really. I can manage on about 4 or 5 hours sleep for a couple of days, and then I start making terribly poor decisions.
Yeah.
The truth filter off my mouth disappears, and things like my coordination goes downhill rapidly, shall we say. But fatigue. Okay, the symposium last year, our lovely commissioner, who I do have an awful lot of respect and admiration for, mentioned that this year they were going to be getting serious at tackling fatigue. And I don't know how you can be serious about tackling fatigue when people are doing somewhere between 12 and 14 hours or 72 hours plus a week in the workplace. To me, it beggars belief that we are still doing these work practices and we are expecting that will not affect people's not just physical health, but their mental health. And I know it's not me being real because I cannot see the resource industry wanting to go to 8-hour shifts, and I think we'd get pushback from workers. But is it the elephant in the room that we just don't look at? Because we take away people's sense of community. We throw them in the middle of nowhere with, as you said, people they may not even like. But then we get them to work ridiculously long hours over a longer period of time. Will things ever get better until we tackle that?
I think that is a big key component of it. I think your roster also plays a part in it, because if you're doing, I know some organisations, they do 3 12-hour shifts and then they have a few days off and then they do it again. And that's there's a recovery component. So I think it's to do with the roster on top of the 12 hours. But I think with mining, you start off with a sleep debt because you get up at crazy o'clock and you're already sleepy. And the night before you fly out, you don't even sleep properly anyway. So you've already started your shift, your swing, really, really tired, and you never really get a chance to catch up. So I think that exacerbates the fatigue issue. But some people can handle the 12 hours. I sometimes do 12 hours, but it's different when I don't have to get up at 3 o'clock to do the 12 hours. Our circadian clock is just not suited to that already, and we're making people do that. I'd like to do a test. If we started at, say, 7 and finished at 7, how would that impact on people's physical and psychological health compared to starting at 5 to 5? Don't know. Because it's about what time you get up, right?
Yeah. I heard last year when I was up at one site that an organisation, we'll say an organisation, who was getting its people to fly in on a day, said that their first day that they were working night shift, it was okay. It was acceptable that they only had 4 hours sleep before they started work. And I just went,
that's so bad.
I have never, ever seen any scientific study that says operating on 4 hours sleep, even for one shift, it is an acceptable practice. Is it purely that we do this because we're employing 2 shifts instead of 3? Is that what it's about?
I think it is a little bit of that. Yes, the short answer I think is yes, because we're not allowing, more often before there used to be morning, noon and evening shift or night shift, but now we just don't do that anymore. But I think people forget it's not just how many hours of sleep that you get, but how long you've been awake, and that sets everything up, right? So if you're thinking about, again, I'm going to use that fly-in day. If I'm flying to site, I might get up at 3:30, but I don't sleep at 7 the night before because I'm too busy and too sort of everything to get that going. So I've been up, not having enough sleep to start off with, and then I've been up since 3, and then I work until 6 maybe, and then I do my bits and bobs, and then I might get to sleep at 8. You've been awake for, I don't know, my maths is not very great, but that's essentially basically acting as if you blow blood alcohol content of 0.1. And you've started like that into your swing. And then you don't sleep well for your first night, especially if it's not the same room that you use all the time. So you've got another version of not sleeping well, and then you've got now 2 nights of that, and that's the beginning of your swing. And I think it's like, if people don't understand the whole how long you've been awake plus how many hours you sleep, plus trying to get everything else to fit in, that's when it really becomes dangerous.
Yeah. Have you seen any improvement in the FIFO industry about, again, the things that we don't talk about, the sexual assaults, the sexual harassments, anything like that used to be prevalent? Is there any improvement from your perspective?
I think the fact that it's so front and centre now will make things better. It will make reporting a lot more common, I hope. But that, again, it depends on every organisation, right? Because sometimes we can say we do something, we believe in this sort of stuff, we prioritise and we're committed to it, but that's just words. So I think it depends on which organisation you're actually working for. So I wouldn't say there's a blanket good or bad or improvements or not.
Good. All right. I'm going to ask your opinion. And again, this is, well, why not? Why not be controversial, right? Yeah. All right. Sexual harassment. Is it better handled internally, or is it better handled sending matters straight to the police, for example?
I want to say both, because you can't abrogate the responsibility of the impacts of this sort of stuff to those who aren't even affected. Who aren't directly affected. So I think if you don't handle it internally in terms of the risk side of things and risk management and control sort of thing, then that's pretty bad. I think it is illegal, so the police should get involved. We do find possibly the people, the injured persons, might not want to do that because also they're afraid of what that would mean for them in the job. And we do often hear the injured person say, I just want them to stop. I don't want them to lose their job. But, there's the complexities there as well.
Yeah. Now, you spent a lot of time earlier on in your career doing HR type roles. And every organisation has codes of conduct. All right, think of yourself back in a HR role. You get a demonstrated, justifiable, or being able to be backed up sexual assault, sexual harassment claim. So when Sandra Lam's in charge, is it referral? Is it handled internally? Do we do what I've heard of some organisations do, which, no offence, it reminds me of several parts of the church maybe 20 years ago, where they would move someone from one location to another or to another team just so they can avoid dealing with the issue. What's Sandra Lam going to do?
Sandra Lam would ask what the person wants. Because I think the worst thing you can do is make assumptions about what the person has to deal with and what they want as well, and supporting them through the process. So there's multiple levels to look at this. If it's illegal, yes, you can report to police, but the person needs to be able to report it to the police. So the person needs to be comfortable dealing with whatever consequences are. And sometimes it's good, sometimes, to them it's not good. But then we have to think of how do we protect others from experiencing this again? And how do we make sure that people who are recruited into the organisation know that this is a no-go? How do we get our leaders to make sure that they catch this stuff early? How do we make sure that our leaders and anyone in the leadership positions role models the correct behaviours? And then there's the whole cultural piece on top of that. So it's not so simple and
it's not cut and dry.
It's not cut and dry.
Yeah.
I think you need to look at things from multiple angles.
Good. All right. Changing tack.
Okay.
Because we can. I might have mentioned this to you off air before. So I did some research into Sandra Lam today. It took me all of about 5 minutes. I'll be honest. But everyone sees you as FIFO Focus, Permentis, Psychology. But there's a bit more. You dig below the surface, and there's some wonderful stuff you've done in the past. And to be honest, stuff you really should be proud of, really proud of. So let's start with your time working as a policy officer for the Assistant Police Commissioner.
Yes, of professional standards.
Yeah. What was that about?
Because ethics and integrity is so important in police, of course. So that Assistant Commissioner of Professional Standards is the branch of the WA Police who are responsible for making sure that police don't do bad things. And I think that's really very much me, because I'm very much a seek justice person, which is probably from my school, because my motto at school was seek justice. It's always been really strong in my blood. So bad police are not great for anybody.
No.
So that was a really fascinating area. Got to work with some fascinating teams, some that I can't speak about, but it was just great. I think that really fits into who I am in the core. And I think you're right. A lot of people don't actually know Sandra Lam. They just know Sandra Lam, FIFO Focus, psychosocial risk. But they don't know how Sandra Lam got to that point and why Sandra Lam continues to do what she does. And I think what you've done is you're just uncovering some of my journey to where I got to.
Yeah. Look, I think I know it's important, paramount importance in policing roles, but I would suggest that ethics is something that should play a larger role than it does in every organisation. Actually following through, being clear and transparent, doing the right thing. I mean, this is natural justice that I always see. So it's good because, I'd say Karina and me are both big natural justice people. All right. Now, then of course you worked as a captain in the ADF. I'm gathering that was in your psychology role.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And I'd suggest that would be something that would keep you very busy.
It was such a good time. Oh, actually, I joined the ADF because I'm not an institution type of person. And I'm the type of person who goes, well, if that's not me, how do I know it's not me if I don't give it a go? And I can't bag something out, I haven't tried it. I'm that person. I'm not saying I'm bagging ADF. That's far from it. But, I'm not the follow rules blindly type of person. I'm very much like, but why do we do that? So I joined the ADF really in the psychology core because it's necessary. But that helped me learn a lot about discipline and procedures and how you work as a team in a camaraderie sort of way as well. Camaraderie sort of way, that's a terrible way to describe it, but you know what I mean? It's just understanding that cohesion is so important, especially in roles that people play in something like the military.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm guessing building teams that could rely on each other in times of crisis without questioning and doubt, that's a significant part of the military that perhaps we don't have in, we'll say, civilian life. Yeah.
And selecting the right people. We did a lot of recruitment type things as well to make sure we're selecting the right people because we're going to hand them guns, rifles. It's kind of important that they're not sort of trigger happy and so I think that was the beginning of my risk view. I remember sitting in the interview with, it was a Spanish Inquisition. There was 5 of them, one of me going, oh my God, do I really want to join the military? And they asked me, what do you think the role of your psychologist? And I said, it's actually risk management. Because essentially we're trying to make sure that we don't bring in people who pose a risk to the organisation and the community and anywhere else, right? So I'd say that was when I first thought risk is really important, and our role as a psychologist is to minimise risk.
So I'm guessing they've done a fairly good job of screening people because unlike some other countries, we don't hear about veterans grabbing automatic weapons and massacring people. So we must be doing something right.
Yeah, there you go.
Very good. All right, so let's talk about other experience for you.
Okay.
Now, something that's, I don't know, it's been close to my heart for decades, a couple of decades at least. Again, it's about justice and building just societies, particularly in developing countries. And Southeast Asia was always of great interest to me because not only are we part of Southeast Asia, but we're kind of separate in terms of culture, in terms of environment in Australia. So to me, it's a bit different, but it's still local. So talk to me about your time helping establish and set up systems for justice in developing countries in Southeast Asia.
Yes, actually, I started in the Pacific. So I actually did international aid work for 9 years.
Whereabouts?
Pacific. The Pacific region as well as Southeast Asia.
Such as the Solomons?
Solomons, Pacific Islands, PNG, FSM, the Federated States of Micronesia. You've got, all the Pacific Islands, North and South.
Yep.
And the program I was attached to I started off in Fiji. Oh, sounds amazing, doesn't it? But I did get into the whole Australian Fiji Law and Justice Sector program.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all about, my role was in the HR capacity development role. And we were basically looking at increasing the capability of police, courts, prisons, DPP institutions, so any justice institution, to make sure that their HR systems were correct. And doing things better. So everything's about building capability and building capacity. And then I moved into a Pacific regional policing program, so back into the police. But now my reach was bigger. So it's not just Fiji, but all the Pacific regional countries as well. And that was amazing. because I think this is where you realise how lucky we have it in Australia. We complain about the most stupidest things, whereas these people struggle. And it's really interesting to see how many of them are still really happy without money.
Yep.
Because the determination of what makes life valuable is not money, but it's connection.
Yep.
And it's community. Yep. And laughter and all of those sorts of things. I think it really opened my eyes to what is out there. When we travel, we go to these nice fancy places with the hotels and, eat fancy stuff. But these people don't. So it's just eye-opening and really heartwarming as well. I remember in a particular project, we say grace because religion has infiltrated everywhere. And I remember one of the ladies who said grace and said, "Oh, thank you, Father God, for looking after us and protecting us, and thank you for bringing Sandra here to make our lives better." And I felt like I was going to throw up because it's like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. But essentially that's what AID was trying to do, just to improve lives in these developing countries so that they can develop more. So it's like you don't remember, you forget how lucky we are, but also if you are doing AID work, you have a big responsibility. So it's not just, having a holiday, you're actually trying to change the country to make it better in whatever way you can.
Yeah. All right. On a personal note.
That was personal.
I know that was personal. But on a personal note, I'm just going to ask you, do you ever get disappointed when the countries that you've put the work into and you've seen them make progress towards building stronger institutions for democracy, justice, and that, then slide back, take a couple of steps back? So I'm thinking here about the Solomon Islands. I'm thinking here about PNG, which seems to be constantly one step forward, 1.5 steps back, then 2 steps forward, then 1.5 steps back. We could even talk about what else could we talk about there? There's a few countries in the Pacific, even Fiji. I mean, even Fiji, which is democracy, and then we have a military takeover, and then democracy starts to grow again. Yeah, I was kicked out because of the military takeover. So. Do you get disheartened by that?
I think initially I do, I did. But I think I thought about things a little bit differently. So, for example, in Fiji, when the military coup happened, we did have, with my counterparts, went out to dinner. And we were complaining about things that they didn't have the words for when I first started. So they were saying things like, oh, the whole role descriptions are gone. There's no point being ethical in our recruitment processes. And they were complaining about stuff where 2 years ago I was talking about all these things and they said, what are you talking about? And that's when I realized sometimes capacity development isn't about what you see, but how people feel about things. And that knowledge of what good could look like, you can't take away. Yeah. And I think even if you think about, if you have a particular standard of whatever it is in your life and then it's taken away, you still know that standard is possible. So you will still aim for it. So maybe this is just blind hope, but I think sometimes things go backward, but you go forward faster because you've got this appetite for what it could be instead. And I think that's with everything. We go backwards a lot, but we also know that it could be better. Whereas if we never experience what that better looks like, we won't ever get there.
Yeah, good.
Is that a different perspective, maybe?
No, that's great. That's great. All right. I don't want to talk for too much longer because I feel like we've already talked a fair bit. and to be honest, I'm running out of steam. It's what happens when you get old. You'll find out in a few years' time. But I'll finish on one note. I'll ask you one question. Okay. What does the future hold for Sandra Lam?
I think I would like a future to be less work and more play. I have been reflecting on the fact that my last overseas holiday was 2018 and my next time off is I don't know where. And I think It's a good thing. I think I've just been so driven to, build the business and do more good work that I forget when am I going to actually enjoy it all. I think there's a bit of that. I'm getting a puppy, a second puppy.
What type of breed is this puppy?
It's a mini double doodle.
What is that? What is that?
So it's a miniature, so it needs to be under 10 kilos, hopefully, because you never know with them. Groodle, which is a golden retriever cross poodle, crossed with a labradoodle, which is a Labrador poodle. So that's why it's called a mini double doodle.
Okay. And what will this look like?
It looks cute. That's the way I would describe it. Cute, fluffy little thing who's going to be amazing.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. And that will take a lot of time.
You said that's a second dog.
That's my second dog. Yes, I lost my first dog maybe about a month and a bit ago.
Oh, no.
It sucks. I've never felt such grief.
How old?
She was 15 and 9 months.
She had a good run.
She had. She's my therapy dog.
Yeah.
So I'm getting this one to be trained up as a proper therapy dog.
All right. I'm going to ask you one more question. What is better, people or dogs?
Dogs.
100%.
That is not even one I need to think about.
Very good, very good. Sandra Lam, it's always a great pleasure speaking to you, and thank you for coming down. But today, well, for now, we're going to leave it.
Thank you. It's been great, again.
Thanks for listening to Health and Safety Conversations with Tom Bourne. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your week.